Pastula. How you doing, Gino? Glad you're here, buddy.
Yes.
You were just awesome last hour, so I decided to keep you around for another hour.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
I think.
The great 17th century philosopher and mathematician, Blaise Pascal.
Ah, I knew him well.
You knew him well? You were alive back then. Yeah, I told you he was older than dirt. Posited that belief in God was a paying proposition. If one believed and was wrong, all that was lost was a lifetime of unnecessary piousness and Sunday sermons. Betting against him and being wrong, on the other hand, produced a different and rather warmer outcome, if you know what I mean. When we talk about annuities and guaranteed lifetime income and insured products, it's a lot like that, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way. That's interesting that you brought that up, because I never thought of it in those terms. Other than, I mean, I've said that if you have insurance and you never need it, just fine.
Well, wouldn't you love
great.
to be in a position
That's right.
where you go, oh, shoot,
And-
I never needed my life insurance because I'm now living until I'm 210.
Well, and somebody could figure out how much money you wasted.
Right.
Because
and somebody
you
will,
didn't.
obviously.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I know some the beneficiaries that I've seen today. They just grab the money and go. They don't sit and do any calculation. But if you do need it and you don't have it, that's when it's really sad. So
it's interesting because I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal here from just the other day, how to tell if your retirement nest egg is big enough. And they go into this, Pascal theory. And they also quote Warren Buffett. You might recall this because you were around in 1998 in the financial business and all that, when long-term capital management imploded. And it was the last time that we were really scared about like the world stock markets going down, because all these propeller head Nobel laureates basically took the market down with, shorting Japanese bond, whatever it was. I forget what it was now, but it was one of those derivatives plays that they had some computer model, and all of a sudden what worked so well, and they got a Nobel Prize for it, didn't work anymore. And Warren Buffett described it, the 1998 collapse of long-term management, this way, quote, "To make money they didn't need, they risked what they did have and did need." And so I put that in the context of a lifetime guaranteed income annuity contract, because so many people are risking money that they may need for their future retirement. And if they retire and the luck of the draw goes the wrong way, they may not have the money they need when they need it the most.
It's so interesting to watch people, we are in as volatile and as uncertain a market as I've seen in all the years that I've been in this business. Now, that doesn't mean that this hasn't happened before, that it won't happen again. It's not like Armageddon going on here, but it is a very uncertain time. And yet you have people that have committed their entire future to what the outcome is going to be year to year in these markets and in this environment. I don't understand, the thinking there, because you have no more time now when you're in retirement to create another asset mix, another portfolio. You need to make this one work, and to me, one of the things that I look forward to when I do end up not working anymore and living off my assets is also part of enjoying life is not to have the stress. And I'm all about mixing in a side of a portfolio assets that will be guaranteed, that are predictable, that I know exactly what they're going to do, and that they're going to do it for as long as I need it. And then I apply that type of investing to what I know I need to have, my mortgage paid, my taxes paid, my, certain basic living benefits. And then once I've allocated that, and I know that that's going to happen for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, however long it takes, then the rest of the money that I have, now I can put that at a little bit more risk. I can put that in a portfolio that it has less certainty to it, but greater potential for building my wealth for I'm not quite sure why. It's amazing to see a 80-year-old man still trying to make his fortune by trading stocks. If he's just doing it for fun and he can afford, that's great. But if he's trying to manage his life going forward and leave even more behind, that's kind of problematic to me.
Donna Rosato wrote for Money, the 5 secrets to a happy retirement. And isn't that what we really want? We want a happy retirement. We don't want a sad retirement. And of course, if you're broke, that's going to be pretty sad. But what I found fascinating is the number 1 secret that she writes about to a happy retirement is create a predictable paycheck. No doubt about it, she says, more money makes you happier. Once you amass a comfortable nest egg, though, the effect weakens, according to Wes Moss, a financial planner, in his recent book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. Moss surveyed 1,400 retirees in 46 states. The happiest ones had the highest net worths, but Moss found that money's power to boost your mood diminished after $550,000. But the number 1 thing that Donna Rosato writes about is creating a predictable paycheck. That's right up your alley, isn't it?
But I do. That's right. That's right. And it's interesting. See, the individual advisor, God love him, will and if you have a smart one, will do great things for you until he doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's supposed to be, and quite frankly, that's all he promises. The thing is that he will do his best to make your plan with him come true. But if something goes wrong, it's on you.
Part of the problem, though, Gene, and you know this, is so many people retired in the 80s, 90s, and saw these big run-ups in stock prices, and they have forgotten that markets don't always go up 300% over 10 years. In fact, they rarely do. And now that we've seen a 30-plus year run where interest rates started up here and they've come down to almost zero, we start thinking about guaranteeing that retirement paycheck, and you have to ask yourself, how are you going to do that? How are you going to invest the money to guarantee a retirement paycheck? Are you going to do it with a systematic withdrawal? Well, interestingly, the researchers tell us that if you're going to do the old systematic withdrawal, the 4% rule, now has to be, because of these low interest rates, a 2.8% rule. Well, what if you have $1 million and you can't afford to live on $28,000 a year? When we come back from the break, Gene Pastula is going to show you how you don't have to put up with a 2.8% rule, because you can protect yourself with longevity insurance. Lots of different ways to skin that. Gene will talk about it when we come back. He is the Safe Money Monitor guy. You can contact him at safemoneymonitor.com. Find out how all this stuff can work for you. It's pretty awesome, too. I've studied it, and he's taught me a lot. Safemoneymonitor.com. Gene Pastula, my guest for today, and I'm glad he's here because we've got a lot of ground to cover and a lot more to talk about. So stick around. 844-RAY Show if you want to chat with myself or Gino here. I call him Gino because it reminds me of a cheesesteak back in Philadelphia. Don't go away. And welcome back, the Ray Lucia Show. Glad you're all here. 844-RAY Show. If you'd like to pick up the phone right now and give us a call. My special guest, Gene Pastula. He's a certified financial planner with about 40 years experience in the industry, primarily focusing on long-term health care, life insurance policies, and annuities. And today our topic of discussion is guaranteeing a lifetime income. And I'm quoting from Donna Rosado, who wrote 5 Secrets to a Happy Retirement, and her number 1 secret: create a predictable paycheck. Now, I can give you the other ones, but not nearly as powerful. Stick with what you know. That makes sense to me. Find 4 hobbies, not 3. You need 4 hobbies. Rent late in life, in other words, get rid of the house hassle, and keep your kids at arm's length. Well, I can understand that. But nothing more important than getting a paycheck every single month. Gene Pastula, welcome back. You're passionate about this stuff because you're living this right now, not only as an advisor to individuals, but you're living this in real life yourself.
Yeah, I am to a certain degree, and it's kind of coming along faster and faster. In fact, I like that part about rent late in life. That's an interesting concept that I may look into a little bit more. You know, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've never had a paycheck from the standpoint of that somebody else is providing it. You know, any paychecks I had to earn myself, and through profits in my business and making all that work. And now that I'm in a situation where I'm preparing to live off a portion of my assets. In other words, I still have my fingers in various pies, so I'm okay there. But in any event, the idea of having a paycheck come into my checking account once a month is very comforting, and I do not understand how people can do that off of a portfolio that is invested in the market totally and totally dependent upon the results of their financial advisor. You know, it just blows me away. The institutional approach, using insurance companies that have a longevity 10 times as long as you do, that don't have to worry about investing your money just for the period of time that you're on this earth, but can invest that money for decades and decades and decades past you. It allows them to give you that paycheck for as long as you live and be able to guarantee it. And to me, that just makes all kinds of sense.
You know, what's interesting is, and we talk about life expectancy all the time here, because I mean, this is the business that you are in for sure, is protecting people against, you know, dying too soon, life insurance, living too long, annuities, or becoming sick along the way, long-term health care, right? Or disability coverage.
Right.
And when we talk about life expectancy, according to Greg Easterbrook, who wrote on this topic a couple of months ago, he said since 1840, life expectancy at birth has risen about 3 months with each passing year. And what's interesting is factoring life expectancy and reading through this, not even thinking about modern technology or health science and what we've learned, the half-life of medical technology is like a blink of an eye. Not even counting that, he says by the end of the century, from birth, it'll be age 100. In fact, a baby girl born today has about a 50% chance she'll make it to age 100. And that's based on what we know today, but that's changing by the minute. So let me just read from this Easterbrook article because it's fascinating. Projections of ever longer lifespans assume no incredible medical discoveries, rather that the escalator ride simply continues. If anti-aging drugs or genetic therapies are found, the climb would accelerate. Centenarians may become the norm rather than rarities who generate a headline in the local newspaper. So we talk about centenarians. My good friend Dr. Stephen Franklin has interviewed 500 of them and captured most of them on tape. He's interviewed many super centenarians, 110 years of age. Listen, when you live to age 100 or beyond, that annuity contract goes from being just something that gives you great financial security to one darn good investment.
Yeah, and now you're beating the insurance company, and of course that's what we see people trying to do all the time. But it's not important. The important thing is if you set up a portfolio that has a diversification of products in it that can address the various issues that you have, that you face, and quite frankly, those issues of longevity and and morbidity of needing care at some point in time are issues that you can't just fix yourself. I mean, they're going to happen or they're not going to happen, and when they're going to happen is totally unknown. To be able to try on your own to allocate your assets in such a way that you don't have to worry about those is almost an impossibility, unless obviously you're worth multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's interesting because I got an email the other day from somebody that is an intellect. I'll call him a pseudo-intellect because he studies this stuff and he watches the shows and listens to my show, and I appreciate that. But he said, why can't I just build a TIPS ladder, a Treasury inflation protected securities ladder for the next 30 years and be done with it? And why would I want to mess with an annuity, one of Gene Pastula's annuities? I don't think he said your name, but
I would say, why do you want to do that instead of easily just buying an annuity?
Well, interestingly enough, allow me to read from this, and we'll come back to that. But the Buck Institute, which is over in Marin County, since 1999, scientists and postdocs there at the Buck Institute have studied ways to make organisms live much longer and with better health than they naturally would. Remember, we were talking about this. The life expectancy is going up even without this. But check this out. Already the Institute's researchers have quintupled the lifespan of laboratory worms. Most Americans have never heard of the Buck Institute, but someday this place may be very well known. Buck is not alone in its pursuit. The University of Michigan, University of Texas, University of California at San Francisco are all studying ways to slow aging, as is the Mayo Clinic, and it goes on and on with lots of different firms studying longevity research. Craig Venter, a biotech entrepreneur at the Calico Life Company, the biotech entrepreneur who in the 90s conducted a dramatic race against government laboratories to sequence the human genome, also found a startup that seeks ways to slow aging. He founded a startup company that, you know what? We're sending people to the moon. They said it couldn't be done. Slowing aging, it's happening just organically. Think about this. Think about living to 100 or 110 or maybe even 120. And then think about a guaranteed paycheck for life. One of the things that make you happy in retirement. Don't go away. We're going to tell you how you can get one of those when we come back. You know, we have learned from the Society of Actuaries that a healthy couple age 65 has a 50% chance that one or the other of them will still be alive at age 92, and a 25% chance that one or the other will still be alive at age 97. So I want you to think about that as you're planning your retirement. Retiring at 65, what if you or your spouse is still around at age 97? And that's based on what we know about medical science today. Welcome back, folks. The Ray Lucia Show, as we tackle this risk, and it truly is a risk of longevity, outliving our savings. And before the break, I was alluding to the fact that one of my emailers said, why wouldn't I just buy 30 years worth of Treasury inflation protected securities? In fact, that is one strategy that a certain finance professor is floating from the East Coast. And the answer is because you don't know when you're going to die. You don't know if 30 years is going to do it. What if you need a 40-year retirement? Remember, like in my case, and most of our cases, we're planning for 2 retirees. It's not how long Ray lives. It's how the combined or the joint life expectancy of Ray and Jeannie live. I mean, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. She could still be around 40 years from now, and I hope that she is. So the question then is, how do you manage that risk? Do you assume it all yourself? And by the way, if you bought the 30 years worth of TIPS, Treasury inflation protected securities, and inflation remained where it is today, you'd earn about 2% on your money. You'd earn about 2% on your money for the next 30 years, and then run out of money and have nothing left in year 31. So that strategy just doesn't hunt as far as I'm concerned. But certainly having some, not all, some of your money allocated to what we call in this business flooring your income, making sure that between your Social Security, your pensions, and some form of longevity insurance, all of your fixed expenditures are covered so that you don't have to worry about them. All you have to worry about is some variable expenses and inflation. By doing that, the finance professors have proven in academic studies, and if you want, I'll be happy to quote them to you, but they have figured out that the best thing you can do, not the second best or the third best thing you can do, but the very best thing you can do, Gene Pastula, is to annuitize a percentage of your retirement wealth.
Yeah, there's a flip side to that. You may not live more than 5 or 6 years. But if you're trying to plan for yourself so that you can live for 30 years and you only make it 6, what you've just done is during that 6 years, you've denied yourself income that you could have had and you could have enjoyed. So it works both ways. When we put an annuity into a individual's portfolio, and I'm not suggesting here that you do one or the other. I mean, it's not like, okay, you can either invest your money or you can buy an annuity and that's it. No. What you do is you allocate certain percentage to each strategy that fits your particular circumstances and what have you. But when we do this, we end up generating an income for the client anywhere from 5 to 8% per year rate of return. Now, in your examples earlier, we used to say that, well, you can take 4% out of your portfolio, and you got what was it, a 95% chance of it lasting as long as you do.
Yeah.
Now it's, did you say 2 and 3?
Well, here's what's happened. Because, when they did that they called a safe maximum withdrawal. When they did that, it was back in the 90s, 1998, and bond yields and interest rates were significantly higher, 2-3 times what they are now. So when the researchers went in and said, well, you know what? If bonds eventually come back to where they have been historically, if they eventually come back, then the 4% safe max doesn't work anymore. It needs to be 2.8% if you want a withdrawal plus an amount for inflation. So 2.8 doesn't sound that exciting when you can get 6.8 or 7.8.
Well, the interesting thing is that if you're, when I said like 6% is what we'll often see being generated in the form of income from an annuity for a client. But that's a client who's in his or her late 60s, maybe 70 years old at the most. When the client is 75 or 78, that percentage goes up to 7, 8, 9% because of the idea that they're taking an average life expectancy and using that to determine how much money they can pay out, they being the insurance company. And then basically with a little bit of flux, if you will, in their pricing to take care of the potential that you won't just live till life expectancy, you'll go right on through it, and so they'll have to continue to pay you.
Let me ask you this, all right, because I hear these commercials all the time about, my clients didn't lose any money in the crash of 2008, and all they did was make money. and this is better than any 401k or IRA you could ever have. I mean, there's a lot of puffery out there, and I suspect that's one of the reasons why it's difficult in your business cutting through all this stuff. But it is true that there are annuities that can participate in the market performance or a percentage of it without the downside risk, and those have actually performed fairly well, right?
Yeah, the idea, the insurance companies can invest their money in such a way as to provide or pay interest on your account based on some percentage of the performance of the stock market, meaning that if the market goes up, your interest rate that they allocate to you can be higher than it would be otherwise. But if the market goes down and it loses money, you don't. You don't see a reduction in the size of your portfolio or your principal, and the result of that has been over the last 15 or 20 years, a rate of return, in the 6.5% range for a very conservative investment. Point is that you're not going to get rich by putting your money in an annuity. That's not the point. The point is to get the largest amount of monthly income from your principal that is possible while guaranteeing that it will never end until you do.
Now, one of the things that I noticed on some of these contracts, and your employee, your president, I guess, or CEO, Tim Morton, had shown this to me, and I was fascinated by it, is that there are some of these annuity contracts that are fixed. They're based on an index performance. They can't go negative. And even after, if you have longevity and you live 20, 30 years, when basically all the money's been drained out of the contract, it was still showing me, because I was thinking about it for me, quite frankly, it was still showing me an increasing income stream to keep pace with inflation. And I didn't get that, because I can understand if it were a variable contract and the market was going crazy. How can you continue to give me an upshot in my income once I've spent all the money?
Well, that part is no different than any annuity that will end up guaranteeing to continue their benefits as long as you live, even though they might have already paid you everything that was in your portfolio. How they do it is that they price it at the very beginning. In other words, they gave you less to start with as a result of having to prepare for the potentiality that you would continue to live way past when you should have, and therefore they have to keep building that, increasing that.
Okay, we're running short of time.
All right.
The bottom line here, though, for folks has to be this. I mean, I can see adverse selection in here. Insurance companies don't like that, but if you're healthy, if you exercise, if you eat right, if you wear your seatbelt and don't fly Malaysian Air, I shouldn't have said that. That was just not good. But you know what I'm saying. You could win one over on the insurance company, because you could win the longevity game and end up with an annuity contract that pays you far more than you ever put in. And the present value study, because that's what I do, present value studies, right? I pull up my calculator. I did a present value study, and if I made it, my wife and I, because it was a joint annuity we were looking at, if the combination of the two of us, if one or the other, made it to like age 95, you couldn't replace that with any investment that was safe, period.
I can't say any more than that.
Gene Pastula. What can I say? SafeMoneyMonitor.com. Check this dude out, all right? He's also the guy that can help you with your linked benefits, long-term care, indexed universal life, anything insurance or risk management. Go to SafeMoneyMonitor.com.